the sense that it's streaming to YouTube live, but it's on a private channel.
Oh, gotcha.
All right. So, Zach, my friend, cheers.
Cheers, Bill.
Bam. Okay, what do we have in this? What's it? Let's break this down for people.
For sure. We have a complete zero proof non-alcoholic cocktail. We start up with a little thing called Seedlip. It's a really cool brand that essentially does non-alcoholic spirits. We're using the Spice 94, so it's going to be more aromatic. It's got notes of clove and star anise, stuff like that. We're going to have Siren Shrubs, a maple ginger shrub, which is a drinking vinegar, tapped maple syrups, a whiskey barrel aged maple syrup. We're going to have a little bit of lime, splash of lime to add some more acidity to it, and then top off with a cranberry lime seltzer. And then, of course, dehydrated lime garnish, because I just like cocktails that look pretty.
Yep.
That's about it.
I appreciate cocktails that look pretty. So, just to kind of get people up to speed with where this zero proof cocktail or cocktail story journey of this podcast is going. I did it. It's upcoming Sober October.
Mm-hmm.
I did it last year. The first time was no alcohol. The year before that, I did no coffee, which was way harder than no alcohol. Which tells me that I should probably try to do both maybe this year. I haven't decided, but yeah, the whole thing behind it was, for me, I like the idea of willpower, discipline, kind of realizing that my vices, my stimulants, anything I'm using extra, I should be able to do without, or what is life without it, kind of as a way at be mindful to think about it, realize you don't need it. And so for me, alcohol last year, 2 years ago, was coffee, because I was drinking way too much coffee. And just, I don't know, maybe a reset. I don't want to say cleanse, because I hate cleanses and teas and all that bullshit, because your body does a great job of filtering things out to begin with. But for me, it's more of a mental cleanse, I should say. There's no detoxing, no teas, none of that. It's just a mindset detox of, like I said, being aware of my vices, my stimulants, and what life looks like without it. So for you, Zach, let's dive into it. When, where, why, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, I guess I fell into cocktails, craft cocktails, all the likes, pretty much right after college. I wanted to, be able to make the best drinks and drink better than anyone else, because you're young, you wanna be able to do that.
You want to be the best.
And it kind of started with, I was working at Christian's Bistro at the time, when I kind of made that realization of what real food tastes like compared to, I just got done living in the dorms, or the residence hall, sorry, and I mean, it was pretty good food, but it's cafeteria food, or it's ramen noodles, or anything you can throw in your microwave.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really cool experience for me. Was like, whoa, using fresh ingredients can really elevate my eating experience. Why is nobody doing this with cocktails yet? Turns out people were.
Uh-huh.
We're just in central Wisconsin, so I didn't hear about it. I was thankful, because there's a bunch of books and YouTube videos that kind of allowed me to dive into that. And so I was very fortunate and thankful to start working at Great Northern Distilling, which was just starting out that time. They just had their vodka, and that was my drinking journey. And slowly but surely got more into that. Me and some of my other coworkers were able to go to New Orleans for a big cocktail conference. We got more connected with the Milwaukee, Madison, Twin City folk. So we really got to experience the industry. But it's not just the bar or beverage industry per se, but I think hospitality in general, you just have a tendency to get sucked into that. Oh, I want to buy you a shot. Drink this, drink that. You need that shift drink to get you through, or before or after, whatever it is. And you just find yourself drinking because it's available to you, or you're unwinding from the day. And I think it was oh gosh, 2 years ago, me and a friend, Cody Baroker, realized that that's what we did. We drink during a shift, and then we go have 3 or 4 beers after a shift, and it's like, we should probably behave. And so we did do a month where we didn't drink at all. He was my neighbor, so it kind of worked out that we were able to hold each other accountable. And it was scary at how hard it actually was at first, but really empowering after the fact. When you kind of regain control. It's not that I was an alcoholic per se, but I think we have a tendency in central Wisconsin especially, or Wisconsin in the Midwest in general, to not think about it. It's like, that's just our culture. There's a beer, you drink it. You go out to dinner, you get a cocktail. And so it almost becomes habitual, even if you're not necessarily, you know, relying on it to get through the day. You kind of are. And so it's I did approach it more like a cleanse, as you were saying, and I did realize through that, kind of, when you do a cleanse, I feel like mentally it's more reactionary. Trying to put a Band-Aid on it, kind of the same thing as meditation. When I tried doing meditation, when I tried to treat it like a Band-Aid, it didn't really work out for me. But when you approach it as a lifestyle approach, that willpower approach, it really works, if you will. So a few times struggling with that, I finally kind of realized that there are a lot of options of non-alcoholic drinks. When I took a step back to start the video production company, I didn't have that access to alcohol at the time, except for my ridiculous collection that I have at home and have amassed. And I'd find myself at night grabbing that nightly beer or having that nightly martini, Manhattan, whatever it was. And I realized I didn't need to have that. I discovered Seedlip, that non-alcoholic, beverage or non-alcoholic spirit, if you will. Playing around with the different syrups, I realized that I can still have that cocktail experience to wind me down, but I don't need to put alcohol in it. It's just, alcohol at the end of the day is just a flavoring when you're making a cocktail. It's an ingredient. You can make a really damn good cocktail without the alcohol. And it's just, I don't know, just kind of took control. And it was cool to see this movement growing. What the ladies, Lane and Mindy, started Siren Shrub. Was that last summer? And to see that really spread, there's another option. They were kind of into it as well. And the more you try to look for that non-drinking culture, you'll be surprised at how quick you can find it. It's just hidden. And so you find more people, and you're like, wow, I want to help spread this movement. And then, of course, Jeremy with Tap Maple Syrup and Ruby Coffee coming in. There's so many great beverages that you can make without booze.
Popping these up. Did you... Like you kind of touched on it. We're in Wisconsin. There's kind of the ethos, like beer brats, tailgating, beer, old fashions, fish fries, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of us, maybe I can think of both my parents, I can think of some of my friends that have alcoholic parents, and how hard it is. Did you have anything like that? I didn't. Both my parents don't drink. I just kind of saw what it did to them, and then my dad's family especially, or I should say both their families. It's very prevalent. There's quite a bit of substance abuse. So seeing that, to me, always kind of painted drinking in general in a negative light. Or like growing up, you're just like, wow, it really does ruin people's lives. And then you realize, like, I got older, started drinking, and I'm like, no, alcohol doesn't ruin people's lives. It's just there's something in someone's psyche. Maybe like you said, is it cultural, being the Wisconsin thing? We just drink, you don't think about it. Maybe it's the lack of deep work being done by a lot of these people, or I don't know, there could be a whole host of reasons. But for you, did you have anything like that growing up?
Yeah, I mean, my family drank for sure. I actually was a, if you will, goody two-shoes growing up, and I didn't drink really at all. I think I was 20 when I bought my first underage, liquor. My parents drank, but they kind of instilled in me to be responsible with it. Outside of my mother giving me my, old-fashioned soaked olives, that was always great. I always joke that's why I got my taste for alcohol. But they did a really good job parenting. But when I got older, my dad and my uncle were really into craft beers, so I knew right away. I kind of was thankful that my immediate family, I knew to kind of treat things as something that tasted good and kind of treat it a little bit with reverence. But I did have another uncle who, a few uncles who definitely like to throw back some Busch Lights or whatever's available just because it's available.
Yep.
That's what it is. And as with any of that, you can see that there's some anger issues and some decisions that you question, like you probably shouldn't have driven home and yada, yada, yada. And you start to see the weight gain and all that jazz. And that's kind of hard to see because the alcohol, I feel like, takes over and you see more of the negatives of the individual than the good. It's there, but it's the anger that comes out or just the being lazy. Other than that, I think most of the stuff that really kind of affected me was being in the industry, seeing my coworkers and friends and even idols as I kind of expanded and got to know people in different cities, how they succumbed to that lifestyle. And they're great. You can have this great conversation and we can talk about, what's the difference between a clear ice and its density and how it affects a cocktail more than, your bagged ice if we wanted to. 6 cocktails later, now he's starting to say, oh, let's go, do drugs or something, or I'm going to get angry and yell at, somebody that I love and my girlfriend. And I would see that all the time is as the nights would go on, people just get progressively more violent and angry and just beyond themselves. And so for me going into it, I looked at that as a cautionary tale, as I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person who is going to push you alcohol and say that they respect it, but at the end of the day, they're going to be kind of ruled by that alcohol. Like I didn't want that at all, because I know these are good people. They were smart people, but here they are swearing at people that they're supposed to love and running away and doing this, that, and the other thing, or cheating on their spouses and crap like that. And that wasn't okay with me. I think the other kind of big factor is my grandfather. He was dry as far as I knew. Growing up, I know I've seen photos of him drinking beers in his younger days with my uncles and family gatherings, but I never had that experience. He was always that dry, that kind of reason. I know he was very concerned, and he would always push to me like, we have an addictive personality, like it's in our blood. I don't know if that was true, but that's what he saw from his family. And so it was a very cautionary tale. And when he passed away last year, that's when I kind of, everything was coming together as a head, and I realized that this is really, really important to me. And as I build Copper and Pines, the cocktail company, I'm also going to put the focus on zero proof cocktails and empowering people who maybe don't want to be affected by alcohol negatively or have that control. So, yeah.
I like it, man. I like it a lot. And you and I have kind of going back to the local food part of the cocktails through the seasonal and fun tour, going to all these farmers, getting into the workshops, cooking and eating local food. How is that so the idea, I guess, of the seasonal approach to your cocktails, what does that look like?
Yeah, the seasonal approach to cocktails and mocktails is great because you realize how many ingredients you have at your disposal. You know that you can make dandelions, for example, into a syrup, and it's a damn tasty syrup, too.
A year ago, I would have been like, holy shit. Now I'm like, man, I believe it.
Yeah, I actually remember.
After you've blown my mind with everything you've been doing, especially through the Levitt Amp concerts every week, you and I messaging each other, and I'm like, what's on the menu? What do I need to bring? Yeah. And then you just tag me in your social media posts. I'm like, oh, good. Now I know. Yeah. So what does that look like?
Well, it's a way to be sustainable, of course. There's a lot of byproducts from cooking with seasonal ingredients that you can use for cocktails. There's a really cool resource that I recommend everybody go out and check out. It's called Trash Tiki. And they are kind of one of the leading movements in terms of just sustainability behind a bar. They have something called a cutting board syrup, right? And they're like, you know what? Say you're doing your prep for a dinner, or you did all your prep for your bar service. Whatever's on that cutting board, just make a syrup out of it. Put it in a pot, add some sugar, add some water, and you get this really cool, funky like sweetener that you can add to your cocktails, and you're not wasting anything, and you're kind of capturing some of those different flavors. Or when you squeeze, you make juice out of something, take that husk, you can throw it into water and essentially make a stock out of it and use it as a replacement for, juices if you want. Kind of like a tea almost.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is, the one thing I'll kind of touch on is the reverence to what you're doing. I think there's a certain mindfulness to craft cocktails and good food. Is you're there in that moment. You know where your food comes from, and you are tasting it. You're experiencing it truly. Like, wow, this is really good. Why is it good? Right? Vodka Red Bull. People try to get drunk. They're not going to sit there and be like, wow, I really love this complex flavor development that's in my mouth. I mean, if you do, no, okay, that's great. But
no one
at least you're trying to
thinking that.
At least you're trying to appreciate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important to just kind of slowing down in life. I feel like we go through it too much. You either drink to get messed up, or you eat and you throw on Netflix, and you're not going to eat until you watch, find something to watch. And I'm very guilty of that. But bringing back, like, oh, it's this season, you know that this is summer. This is spring. This is what winter tastes like. You're able to take that and feel it and be aware of it, and mindfulness, or be mindful of it. Be mindful of the seasonal changes, and appreciate what comes with that. For me, I always knew it was summer when the currants would come in my backyard and I'd get grandma's jam, and that was a cool experience. That's when I knew summer was here, right? Not really a flavor, but fall was tractor rides to the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
And you can capture a lot in those those moments, and like sound and taste are very, very powerful for your memory. Like that nostalgia you can bring back, and I think that's really cool. And if we're not paying attention to that, it's why are you don't appreciate what you have in front of you.
Yeah,
I guess
totally.
So
from the how has kind of this idea changed even from doing the farm tours? Because I know even how I've what I went into the tour we've been doing the last 4 months now, kind of with these preconceived ideas of health and fitness, meal prep, what that looks like. And then you actually go to the farms, you meet the farmers, you talk to them, you kind of better understand what all goes into the land. Where am I being wasteful? That kind of thing. What has that done? What has the tour kind of done to you with the zero proof cocktails?
Oh, just as I learn more?
As you learn more.
Kind of just reinforcing what I said before, is being aware of everything that goes into where your food comes from, and the different subtleties, the different ingredients that you can use too, right? On our very first one, Kat was talking about how you can eat radish greens, and how to do that, and how Swiss chard is more seasonal than spinach at that time. And so you can know these subtleties and know when you're going to get something that's peak freshness, and then how to better use those qualities if you want to be super culinary about it. Just this past week, about the different tomatoes and what they can be used for, and the different characteristics. Like, probably going to have a pretty mean Bloody Mary coming up after diving into that. So it's just, you can take advantage if you are aware of how it's grown, and those different subtle nuances that you might not understand if you weren't a chef or you didn't talk to the farmers. You can incorporate that into your drink, your cocktails. Also realize what is edible. You may not want to eat radish greens, but see what it tastes like in a syrup, or do a radish green infused vodka and use that for a Bloody Mary. What's your secret ingredient? Radish greens, right? Greens. I mean, you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. But it's also showing you, if you don't want to have alcohol in it, that you can replicate those flavors. How do you replicate those flavors in a non-alcoholic way? And what is your, what does your cupboard look like when you're going to be able to make cocktails? And it turns out you have a lot of ingredients to play around with, for sure.
I like it. That feeds right into so you and I have talked about this before, with the health and fitness component, because when you mentioned vodka Red Bulls, people, it's kind of this world we've created, and that you just drink to get fucked up, and a vodka Red Bull will definitely do that to you. Caffeine and alcohol.
They don't mix, which is hilarious because when I was bartending, thankfully I wasn't bartending at a place where we did vodka Red Bulls. We got asked for it all the time, but the culture would go to Goose afterwards, and I would see people who pride themselves on their health and wellness and their fitness, and then they'd be ordering vodka Red Bulls, and they'd have like 4 or 5 of them, and I'm like, do you know how bad that is for you? Like, are you aware what you're putting in your body? And they know energy drinks are bad for you.
Yep.
But this isn't an energy drink.
Yeah.
It's a cocktail. No, it's not. You're drinking an energy drink each time.
Or
and
the
happens.
Thought is, it's sugar free. Like they'll be like, it's the sugar free version, because the only thing that matters is the caloric content of it. And what I love that you're doing, that we've talked about, is the idea of, and that's feeding off the seasonal food thing, is the idea of creating nutrient dense cocktails. So what does that look like for you? Because so many people, we're talking about cocktails are generally syrups that are synthetically flavored or not actually from real food ingredients. And this idea that you've brought to my attention is like, no, these cocktails, if you're using seasonal ingredients like actual food, there's going to be nutrients involved in that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's using whole ingredients, whether you're muddling, which is the term of kind of crushing up. When you're doing an old fashioned, you squeeze that bright red cherry and that orange that's been sitting there for 3 days. Is that you're technically squeezing out the juices and the ingredients using real fruit. But it's also depending on how you capture it, and by not having alcohol as the base per se and looking at it more as a craft cocktail or zero proof cocktail, you pay more attention to what you're putting into your drink. So why I love Siren Shrub so much is they're working with local farms and making and purveyors, and yes, there's sugar involved in that, but there's also vinegar. I mean, shrubs are one of the oldest kind of beverages that it precedes sodas. Like the ancients were drinking this stuff, So you're able to get the the health benefits of apple cider vinegar. At least that's what's kind of out there is what they're saying. Yep. So it combines that with also just kind of capturing those flavors. And when you infuse something, you are infusing some of those flavors and some of those nutrients. It's the same premise on the opposite note of why I recommend not making a tobacco tincture. Soak that in alcohol or whatever it is. That will suck out all of that nicotine, and you have too much of that and can put you in cardiac arrest because it's so concentrated. Well, it's the same thing with your fruits and your vegetables and your other ingredients. It's going to extract some of that stuff. But yeah, I think it's just mainly just being aware of what you're putting into it. I mean, the ingredients that you can use, you don't have to be afraid of it. You got your shrubs, you can use coffee. Coffee is a huge thing. Tea, go back to tea. Tea is super nutritious. Fresh juices, fresh fruits, berries, maple syrup, honey, right? Local honey. I mean, there's so much that you can use, and it's pretty rad.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to find the specific breakdown of apple cider vinegar, because especially with the different add-ons they mix with it. Because a friend of mine, she's been on the podcast before, Dr. Now Newman. She, shout out Rebecca, was breaking down maple syrup and apple cider vinegar as electrolyte replacement and potentially like an endurance glycemic replacement, like a glycogen replacement. And I forget what exactly it was. Because she looked into it, she's like, yeah, they actually would both make great bases for those because of the vitamin and mineral content in both of them. And I'm failing miserably at finding those breakdowns. But I am finding some good recipes.
Yeah, no worries. Well, maple syrup, too. I know you're working with Jeremy with TAP for that. And that's what I love about Jeremy, too, is maple syrup is, a healthier, natural sweetener than kind of like honey, as opposed to if you were just going to make your own, like, high fructose corn syrup or even a simple syrup, because that's truly natural, and he's making it accessible and interesting by infusing it, and you can get those subtle flavors for sure.
Oh, it's so good. Well done, sir. Do you have a name for this one?
No, I'll let you come up with it. I poured you another Seedlip. This is Seedlip Garden, and so Seedlip, that non-alcoholic spirit per se or distillate that I was talking about earlier. Their slogan is actually like the art of nature, so it kind of goes into they're trying to capture that essence. This is garden because it's going to taste like peas. It's going to taste like asparagus. It's going to taste like you just drank your garden. It's kind of
smells
funky.
like a vegetable garden.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Like exactly like it, right?
Yeah.
No, imagine putting that in a Bloody Mary. That's got way more flavor than a vodka, right? Actually, Bloody Marys are the perfect thing. Wisconsin tradition, right? Tailgating, Packer Sundays. We're gonna have a Bloody Mary and watch it. You don't have to put alcohol in it because no matter what you put in there, you're not gonna taste the damn thing anyway. So blend it up. Put some of your seasonal fruits and vegetables in it. Like one of my favorite things about the supper club nature, at least, and the subcategory of Bloody Marys is everyone is so proud of their Bloody Mary mix. Guess what? You can drink just the mix. You don't need to put alcohol in it.
I do love good Bloody Mary mix.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of supper club, I just hit up the supper club this Tuesday that Rising Sam puts on.
Oh, really?
Over at, because you were the one telling me about that.
Yep, I think so.
The community meal they all kind of cook and put on every month, off using all the like gleaned produce stuff that they won't be able to sell, or it's just a little too old for the farmers market for the CSA boxes. And I was talking with Danny because that meal turned out great. It was a tomato bisque, which always reminds me of Bloody Marys. It's like one and the same to me. Like a good Bloody Mary mix or like a really good tomato bisque is just I love it. But bunch of roasted vegetables, and then squash sliced, roasted that way, some rice. It was a great meal. But we were talking about making like a seasonal cookbook for that, like the supper club, and then that's something I'm looking into for the workshops, is because there's typically 4 to 6 recipes per workshop, and I want to get that into an ebook for people, and then have some of the proceeds go to the supper club for all the incidentals they have to use for the cooking. I think that'd be a great idea. For you, Zach, where does the creativity come for your drinks? Because every drink I have from you, I'm just like, holy shit, I've never, I'm born and raised central Wisconsin, so my exposure to good cocktails is limited. Where does that creativity come from you? For you, I should say.
I think surrounding yourself with good people and always trying to learn really kind of opens up your creativity, I guess. Also necessity, like as I've gotten this mindset of not wanting to waste, shout out to Rise and Stand Organics, because we were doing the CSA there, and sometimes it's hard to go through everything. So if something's about to turn, if I'm not going to can it or freeze it, I try to think of like, all right, I want to use this, so what can I do with it? You get creative. Like we're very creative by nature when we are pushed, or put yourself in that mindset of like, all right, I need to use this. How do I use this? You'll do it. It's the same thing as I heard this analogy talking about finances, but I really liked it. Toothpaste, right? You buy your tube of toothpaste, and you don't care how much you put on your toothbrush. You have a new tube. Just like, yep, gonna put this here, gonna put this here. As it gets less and less full and use more and more of it, you start to put less on it.
Gotcha.
And then when you can't squeeze out more, you start to get creative because you want to squeeze as much out of it as you possibly can. So you cut it open and scoop it out or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We can take that kind of creativity and ingenuity is that even a word? Ingenuity everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's just your mindset. We have such an abundance of we can have whatever we want now that we don't put ourselves in that scarcity mindset, I think. So you're not pushing yourself to do that.
I like that.
Otherwise, I like to think like a chef. As I said, I worked for Christian's Bistro, and the chefs there, Chef Christian, Mike, Andy.
Shout out Chef C, Chef Mike. Badass dudes.
Yeah, all of them. And Andy, who was working there at the time, like they taught me so much, and I credit them with a lot of sharing my interest, and then also showing me like what goes good together. So I like to think, when I'm trying to think of what ingredients will work together, I think culinary. What are some dishes that I've had? And that's what really, really kind of pushes me, I guess, and then try to figure that out. And also trial and error. Does this taste good? I don't know. I've come up with some really awful things, You're fortunate that you get to taste the stuff that works.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm lucky and privileged because everything I've ever had that you made, I'm like, damn. And Marissa agrees. Every time you've made something for a workshop or down at the park, it's like food truck. What's Zach got? We love it. Like that. You were just talking about the currents at your grandma's house. That was like summer. For us, it's gotten to the point where Thursday night food truck and Zach's cocktails. That's like summer. Like music, food truck, cocktails. Like it's such a great combo. And she always drinks it 0 proof, and then I'm always like, Zach, what do I need to bring? What do I need to slip in there? But I love it. I wish we could have got Mindy because obviously you and I can talk about the health benefits and the cultural aspect of drinking, but from her perspective, and then Lane's, I've talked to them about, is the need for something like this for moms. Mm-hmm. Like you're expecting, obviously they're not drinking, but like you talked about way at the beginning of the podcast, having that ritual as part of like a wind down or something that's complex, like one of these cocktails, just for whatever reason, like the complexity of it, knowing where the ingredients come from, like you said, that just helps you unwind. Like, oh, yeah. It's just part of that ritual. And the fact that they're as damn good as you make them, and like the recipes you always put up and post everywhere, they're totally accessible for people. Their combinations a lot of the times are like, holy shit, I would have never thought about that. And then you do it, and everyone we followed, it's like, well, that's super simple, and they taste amazing. Shout out Zach. So
shout out all the great producers that are in the area. We have a great tea shop here. I mean, look around you. Great farmers, great, tap maple syrup, siren shrub.
Chug that syrup.
Well, that's to touch on the, parenting. That was one of the coolest experiences of Levitt. We had those concerts, every Thursday during the summer, and I started giving away 0 proof cocktails because it was fun and exposure and all that jazz. But it was so cool and reinforced that, I'm glad I'm doing this, because we would have expecting mothers or people who couldn't drink for health reasons that would have those cocktails or the 0 proof cocktails and say, this is the first time that I felt like people were, like I was drinking, like I was an adult, like someone who was paying attention about my wants. Yep. Because I feel like in a lot of times there is a stigma between not drinking, right? Yep. Whether you are pregnant or you're not doing it for health reasons, or you can't because of health reasons, whatever it is, you go to a bar, a third space, it's the most common third space, especially in Wisconsin, and you order a water, right? And 90% of the time they give you this big red plastic cup or it's a soda or it's a cranberry or something, and you immediately stick out, right? And as I was researching marketing for kind of some of our clients in the video world, I believe it was This Is Marketing by Seth Godin. He talks about one of the driving factors is status for our decision, and it's subtle things. And you're at a bar and you're not drinking, all of your friends are, and they've got cool cocktails that have garnishes and yada yada yada, and you have a plastic red cup. You're not going to feel like, you're going to feel a diminished status. Yeah. It really is. And you're not going to want to go out. You're not going to have a good time. But what we did at Levitt is, in both regular or alcoholic cocktails and 0 proof cocktails, I love garnishes. They look and elevate the cocktail experience both in sight and smell, which aromas can relate to how you taste things too. So there's multiple things going there, but treating that as like an adult beverage, even though it doesn't have alcohol, it can make the world of a difference. And that's why I don't like using mocktails. I don't want to make a mock version of a cocktail. This is a full drink by itself. It's not a Virgin Bloody Mary. It's not a non-alcoholic old fashioned. It is its own drink. It just doesn't happen to have booze in it, and that's okay.
I love that.
That's okay.
I love that part of it. So let's start diving into Sober October. So that was kind of like our little backstory on all of it. So for me, 2 years ago, when I did it without coffee, it was like the school, the grind, that kind of thing was just like driving me crazy. And I took stock and I was like, all right, I need to back off, lower the coffee consumption, kind of that kind of thing. And like we talked about, like a cleanse for the mind, really. Yeah. And then last year, I had lost my grandma, and that hit me really hard. I had lived a very fortunate life up until that point where that was the first super close person I had lost in my life that I was like super close to. I'd been to many funerals, but that was the first one that was super close. And then like we talked about, you just kind of start adding like an extra beer here and there, and it just kind of like spiraled. And at one point I was like, wow, I am drinking too much. So I just, sober October. October, though, in Wisconsin is a really bad month to go sober. There are so many great events that happen in the fall, but that adds to the discipline, the willpower, and the importance of it for me. And so this year, I think I'm just still figuring out for myself personally what I want it to look like. It's definitely going to be alcohol free, and which is why, when you and I have talked about this, I love the idea of it. Mm-hmm. For you, what do you want it to, oh my God, I'm so excited. He's making more. What do you want it to look like for yourself, for people, kind of, so from like a personal and a business standpoint, I guess.
Well, I guess we'll start with kind of the personal side of things. When I say sober in October, I don't necessarily mean completely sober. I remember talking to somebody about this who our company, Copper and Pines, is going to be doing their birthday, and I remember talking about sober in October, and like, you're not going to do that, are you? It's like, well, I mean, I'm still going to drink at your, the event, and of course, Halloween parties or whatever it is. So it's not necessarily sober and being, I'm just going to be completely sober, not have anything. It's more being aware of what you're consuming, and that you don't have to go out of control. I mean, how many times, and part of why it's important to me personally is I've had that so many times where I'm like, you're out and like, I'm going to have one beer. Yeah. And then you run into somebody or something happens, and the next thing you know, you have 3 of them.
It's 5 beers.
Right? Like how that happens a lot.
Well, that's why I have to go no drinks in October. I usually have a friend that has a birthday early October, so depending on if he has a party, a get together, I'll drink up until that point, and then I start after that, and then it'll go until November. But for what you're just talking about, the awareness piece of it, and I'm aware enough for myself to know that if 2 weeks in or like 10 days in, I was like, oh, 1 beer for such and such, like I know I would be off the rails. Like that's just the way my brain works. So yeah, anyways.
So you're aware how that works. To correlate this to the bigger, wider movement quick, there's a growing movement called being sober curious, which, I
love that word.
It is kind of fun. Sober curious, and it's everywhere. It's blowing up. I mean, you can Google search it and you'll find news articles like the whole. And a quick aside note, studies show that about 66% of millennials want to quit drinking or lower their drinking. Ironically, about like 0.5% of all beverage sales are non-alcoholic, but that's changing. Look at how big of a business seltzers are, like flavored seltzers, because that empowers people to drink. Not counting seltzers, though, the whole non-alcohol, whether it's Seedlip or other syrups, whatever it is, non-alcoholic beer, that industry actually increased by $1.1 billion in 2018.
Wow.
So you can see that there's a trend. It's starting to grow, and I think that's tied with that health and wellness thing. But the whole purpose of the sober curious movement isn't to, millennials are killing drinking now too. No, it's not about that. It's about,
man, we fucking kill everything. Apparently. Jeez.
It's about what you choose to say first. Sober curious is like, I'm a non-drinker, but I'm gonna pick and choose where I drink, as opposed to, I drink. And I'll drink everything and anything, whatever the occasion. It's like, I'm not normally a drinker, but I have the power to pick and choose what events are appropriate to drink at and what I want to do, so it's bringing that awareness and changing your relationship with alcohol. Don't let it control you.
Yep.
Define yourself as somebody who has that choice to drink or to not drink in those situations. It's insane. How quick you can just not be aware of what you're drinking. And, you said it perfectly. I know exactly what you mean with my grandpa. I just wanted to grab beers and drink and drink and drink and drink. And a lot of my family did do that. But alcohol, we all know this. The science says it. It's a depressant.
Yep.
It doesn't, give you liquid courage or whatever you might feel like it does. But what that's actually doing health-wise is super detrimental. If you need a chug of beer before you go on stage, you don't have confidence. Yep. I'm sorry, you don't. It doesn't make you stronger. To put it bluntly, you are a weaker person if you have to rely on that to have that. Yeah. If you rely on alcohol for all your social situations and you can't go on a date without having 2 or 3 beers, or you need 4 or 5, cocktails to go have the courage to go talk to that, girl or boy you want to talk to, you don't have confidence. Mm-hmm. You're not going to make a strong relationship with that person because it's through the fog of, what you had to drink. And, you can joke about in pop culture about how it's, your beer goggles, well, yes, but it doesn't have to be so crude, not on a physical level, but on an emotional level, you're not truly connecting to them. It affects your sleep. It affects your stress levels. It affects your energy. Yep. It affects your focus. It affects your skin, your gut biomes.
Yeah, it's connected.
We go to this to make ourselves feel better, but in actuality, it's doing the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. It's funny how we look at things. I think that, again, is culturally where we are. That's just what we do is we drink because we can. Yep. And also pop culturally, right? Think about the 2 big ones kind of in the past, decade or so. You had Sex and the City, where you're always getting your Cosmos and your martinis after work. And then Mad Men, everybody wanted to be Don Draper and have their 6 martini lunches and all of this stuff. Like, there is that pressure to do it. And going back to that status again, if you're not doing it, you feel like a diminishing status. But
you're the person with the red plastic cup.
Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, if you show that control and of it like that should be a raisin status as far as I'm concerned. That should be, if that's what we're going to boil it down to, but not because you want to be seen as a person of status to others. It should be for you, because that's what your focus should be on, is your own growth. And
I love that so much. I had a couple. Ooh. Is this the same one as last time?
No, it's a different one.
Oh, shit. Cheers. What's in this one?
This one is another seedlip. It's Grow 42. It's more citrus-based. And then we got the basil shrub.
That is citrus. That's good.
Basil shrub and cranberry. Normally I'd measure all of this, but...
you got a trained eye.
But okay, so we're on our second drink right now, and we had a sample of the spirits. I bet you we'd all be feeling buzzed, and we'll probably have one more before this.
I'd be slurring the podcast right now.
Tomorrow morning you wake up with a hangover, and you're like, what have I done? Because no one likes a hangover.
No, it's not a good time. It's the few really bad hangovers I've had is why I love the taste of good beer. I love the taste of great cocktails. But while I'm doing it, I'm very aware. I'm like, no, we're going to stop now. You've got that feeling. We're going to stay there. Like I was talking to, so when Timmy Cooper and I hit up Bottle Stop for when he had the taps opened up, Anello was there and he was pouring and he's like, good liquor and a hangover is nature's way of telling you probably shouldn't be doing this. He's like, if you drink it and it hurts you, like most good liquors do, it's like, all right, that's nature's way of telling you, like, hey, take it easy on this. And he's like, a hangover is the same thing with beer or just alcohol in general, is, hey, you shouldn't have been doing that. Like there's a yin and a yang, and there's a point of diminishing returns, and you went too far. So, no, I totally respect what you're saying when it comes to the willpower and choosing not to imbibe just because it's socially and culturally kind of expected of a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I just reminded me when you were talking about kind of like the belonging part of it. You go to that third space. You're really, you want a space to just socialize and talk with your peers. You know, that's the bar, or maybe meet new people. Marissa like hates going to coffee shops because she doesn't drink coffee. She feels weird because, once again, she gets water. It's in this big ass cup. She does, you know, she likes lemonades and that kind of thing, but it's still just like the idea of it and what it looks like. And when she was at Ruby most recently, they have your cocktails there.
That's not me. That's Aaron.
Yeah,
actually.
that's their or something similar to your cocktails, and she got super excited because that was exactly what she thought of as at the park, like the way you make them and kind of like that, how you bring that kind of like belonging to a situation, and it comes from a drink. It's amazing how powerful we've. I mean, you get it. You live in that world, but the you know, you're talking Sex and the City and Mad Men, the social status of like the cocktail. It's amazing.
Yeah. And shout out to Aaron and Kellen at Ruby.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of did that. I know when we were doing the documentary about Ruby Coffee Roasters, which should be releasing soon, Jared and Deanna were very passionate about making the cafe a place and the tasting room where everyone can come and feel comfortable and feel at home. And so I wouldn't, you know, influence aside, I'm not going to put myself in that and say, no, because of me they did this. I'm going to say, well, yeah, you had an environment there of awareness.
Yeah.
And Kellen, a great chef who has a mastery of flavors, and Aaron, who has the passion to learn about coffee and beverages, taking that initiative to go. So shout out to those two for helping spread that. I mean, that's incredible. I actually was just talking to them before this podcast about some potential, you know, collabs for Sober in October, which is super fun and exciting to see that.
Nice. So what are you thinking it's going to look like?
So yeah, mostly we're gonna do a big push in October of recipes on social media. So there's gonna be a lot of that on our Instagram and our Facebook, both photos and, you know, PDFs, or not both, all PDFs, photos, and then some videos as well. Not just drink recipes, but also some ingredient as well. Just kind of trying to bombard you with all this information about why you should be more aware and giving you the options to then take those steps and what you need to do. And then we're going to combine that with some happy hours as well. So we'll pop up at different businesses throughout Stevens Point, and whether we'll be there personally or not, we'll be a cistern of a non-alcoholic punch that you can help yourself. And then have a pamphlet or a brochure where you can kind of read a little bit more about that. So it's all about, through these events and the social media, empowering, I guess, and educating. Excuse me. I mean, that's the goal. That is really the goal, is personally to help spread that, whether it's spreading the movement so you can become familiar with it, educate it, make that decision yourself. Also expand it so people who are already in that stage and are already sober, curious, or not drinking feel included and empowered as well. And then personally, it's hard. Not drinking is hard. I wake up with a hangover sometimes, like drinking the other weekend. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do it. And all of a sudden a buddy asks me if I want to go get a beer, and I do. I'm not perfect at it. I'm going to be completely honest and transparent with you. I'm pushing this and educating as much as I can because it's really important to me. And it's important. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to even try to pretend that I am. I'm trying to grow. And they always say that being a teacher is one of the best ways that you're able to learn yourself. And so that's part of why I want to do that big push as well. On a business standpoint, it's kind of the same thing. It's trying to get Copper and Pines out there so we can continue to do these things and help people feel included and a part of our great community and all that jazz.
Love it, man.
So
before we get into how exactly people, just do a little call to action plug for Copper and Pines. I know your training. Which run did you sign up for?
The River Run?
The River Run. So that's the 5 mile version, right?
Yep.
So you've got the 5 mile run. You're training for that.
In quotes.
Net training. Hey, you did
I'm
the
trying. I'm
you
trying.
did the you I had to yell at you a little bit before the podcast because you said the just part of going out for a 3-mile run. And it's like, even if you walked 75% of it and you ran the other 25%, like that's more activity than you had been doing. That's more, you know what I mean? Like because you hit on it, you hit the nail on the head when you said being the teacher part of it is like the best way to grow. And you're doing that with kind of your health and fitness part of it. You know, you're in a field where I'm guessing fitness maybe specifically isn't necessarily highlighted or prioritized by a lot of people in your industry. Is that
Oh, absolutely correct.
fairly safe to assume? So by what you're doing, that's huge because, you know, you're not like, for me, I'm surrounded by people who work out too much. Like it's the, you know, I go to like strength and conditioning seminars or fitness like weekends, and I always laugh because we are the most high maintenance group. Like when someone sees a bunch of jacked people come into a restaurant, they have to be like, fuck these people. They're gonna be like, I don't want a bun. I want the veggie wrap. You know, like this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, A, you're ruining the flavor of whatever it is that's on the menu. You're being a very high maintenance piece of shit. Like that's all I think about is like, man, everyone must hate us. Like we walk into a place.
It's that stereotype. Well, that's what I appreciate really quick, what I appreciate about you and your approach to fitness is a very holistic thing, and it's a why. What is it actually that you're doing? Where I feel like a lot of people kind of like drinking, they drink or they work out because that's just what they do. Like,
Yeah.
I need to get my workout in, and then you see those people, you know, who are just throwing up, like,
Yeah.
just think about what are they actually doing. They're not focusing on, you know, the rest of what they should be. It's that holistic experience and being aware of what you're doing, and that's what I appreciate about your approach to everything is that overall holistic health.
But yeah, you're bringing the same thing to, you know, the world of craft drinks, zero proof cocktails, like the shit on this table. And every time I drink one, I'm just like, man, this is amazing. So yeah, going back to like the teaching part of it, you're kind of, you know, you've got this awareness, you're stepping up, you're making these changes. Obviously it's very painful right now because it's something out of the ordinary. It's uncomfortable. I'll be the first to admit it. For me, like it still is super uncomfortable thinking about like food choices I was making, or how most of the health and fitness industry just kind of prioritizes like the calorie thing. Like that's all that matters, or fitness, even though it's negatively affecting people. Just a conversation I was having the other day is I'm so hesitant to like someone comes into the gym after a while and they're like, you can tell they've lost weight and you want to be excited for them. But so often that weight loss was from unhealthy means. So they have some form of eating disorder. They're not sleeping. They're working out 6 days a week and they're sleeping 4 hours a night because they're like, oh, I can't sleep. It's like, no, you're on your phone all night. You're drinking. You know, you're having that wine to unwind at the end of the day, and you're just not sleeping well, and you're waking up. You're forcing yourself to wake up super early to check the box and get your workout in, even though all the research points to skipping sleep to go work out is actually digging you still a hole into the unhealthy category. So there's that conversation like I'm constantly having with people. It's like, I want to congratulate you because even I am trained to think that weight loss equals health, and it doesn't. And so kind of seeing what you're doing in the world of, and if at some point I say something where you're like, Bill, that's not what we call it, please call me out. But the world of, you know, zero proof cocktails, of drinking, of that third space, like bar life, or just like that whole world is like bringing this world of awareness for our choices, for what we're picking to put in our drinks, because it's what we're putting in our body, and that feeds into everything. So it's super cool to see you kind of like grabbing this huge responsibility and carrying it on your shoulders in central Wisconsin. So yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, but you know, it's not just me. There's a lot of other people behind the scenes.
Definitely.
And, not even behind the scenes. You know, I think we're very fortunate that we have kind of the community that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Siren Shrubs example, Tapped again, like Lane, Mindy, Jeremy, Abby. I can't like give you enough shout outs and love, because if it wasn't for y'all, I don't think I would have taken this leap at this point yet. And then all the other folks that I worked with in the drink world, you know, from Justin, Steve, Alex, you know, Anthony, Jeff, I could go on and beyond. I know they're all kind of going on their own journeys and pushing in their own regards, but, you know, 5 years ago, not only would we probably not have craft cocktails here, it was just starting, and now that's starting to emerge here with that focus, even if your Archies didn't have alcohol. But you look at the options now for getting 0 proof cocktails. Ruby's got a 0 proof cocktail menu, right? Yeah. Goose, which I would argue is one of the biggest hotspots downtown for, you know, or hangouts, especially for the college age group and beyond. They've got Siren Shrub on the menu, and I know Celia was a big part of that at the beginning. Yep. So you can get a good quality cocktail, and shout out to them too. When I would order, the bartenders at Goose, if I'd order bitters and soda water or something like that, they wouldn't put it in the plastic cup, and it's like they don't. I don't even need to ask them anymore, but I think they're starting to recognize. So it's all these subtle changes from so many people working together that it starts to, you know, permeate. I know a Social and Mikey's, Great Northern, if you don't want a drink, you can ask for a non-alcoholic version, and they will do that. I think the Hilton up at Hilton Garden Inn in Wausau are kind of doing the same thing too. Awesome. So it's all slowly but surely starting to spread, and we're all in this together. It's it's cool. It's a cool little community.
Solid. Well, we're at an hour, my friend. So how can people reach you or book Copper and Pines?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can follow Copper and Pines on Instagram or Facebook. www.copperandpines.com.
That'll be in the show notes
as well. We're still kind of young and growing and evolving. So part of this whole Sober in October thing is for us to get our shit together, to be honest, as a business, is to finally get our social media out there. It's funny, in the video side of marketing side of things, Jade and I, my business partner for 1,000 Lumens, we're joking, we're put so much effort on everybody else that we forget to focus on our own advertising and getting ourselves out there. So that's a kind of another point of improvement that we've been trying to do, and I've been trying to focus on. So by the time this airs and October comes, there'll be pretty much very consistent weekly and daily recipes beyond Sober in October. So you can send us a message there. Otherwise, reach out, info@copperandpines.com or Zach@copperandpines.com, or Sean, who is a business partner at copperandpines.com.
AKA Yukon Cornelius.
Or Alex as well, even though he's moved up to the cities. So if you're listening to this and you're in the cities, definitely do Alex, because he's closer to you.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's just that, I guess.
Cool. All right, man. Yeah. Well, we're gonna peace out. We're gonna finish these awesome cocktails, and see everybody